6 o'clock. I'd like to call this special meeting to order. And as usual, we will start off with a roll call. Judy?
Mayor Doggett.
Here.
Vice Mayor Whitmer.
Here.
Councilmember Lewis.
Present.
Carlson.
Here.
And McKeithen. Here.
Councilmember Carlson has asked if he could make a few short comments before we get into the public comment area, and I suggested that was appropriate.
Actually, Mayor, I was going to have a couple questions when I ask staff. I'm not going to make any comments at this time, but I want to thank you, first of all, for scheduling this meeting and accommodate my schedule today. I appreciate that very much. My question is to the city attorney, and depending on his answer, I may have one or two other questions. But city attorney, am I to understand that there has been agreement to have a full EIR in terms of the library at the park?
There has been a recommendation from the library steering committee or committee, however you want to call it, that the city council do just that. It hasn't been done, but that's the recommendation that will be coming back to the city council at the next meeting, is that a full EIR be completed.
Okay, I think that's very good. I appreciate that. I was going to ask the city planner, who's not here tonight, a couple questions to follow that. I was going to ask the city planner in terms of looking at the qualifications of the environmental consultant that's going to be doing the project, as to who did the reference checks, and maybe you could answer that, city manager.
Do you want me to respond?
If you know,
It's a top shelf group, LSA. They've done environmental work. They've done a lot of big environmental work, and they're a very large company, and generally held out to be very reputable amongst local agencies in this area.
Okay. And part of my question to the city planner was who's engaging this firm? Is it the county library office, the steering committee, or the town of Atherton? Who signs the engagement letter? I think this is important because of an incident last month. Prior to the council meeting, council members received an email from a Burlingame attorney saying he was representing the steering committee on behalf of putting the new library in the park. This wasn't legally possible since the town attorney would have to approve his representing the town committee beforehand, which he had not. So this was a misrepresentation, and the city attorney later found that the county library office had actually engaged the attorney on behalf of the steering committee. I don't know if this was illegal, but certainly highly irregular. So I want to be abundantly clear, to all parties as who will actually be engaging this consultant.
Mr. Mayor, it's on your next agenda, and it will be the city council for the town of Atherton that engages the services for the EIR. And just to correct slightly your statement, outside attorney made it very clear before the meeting and asked me to circulate an email to the council members that I did, that he did not represent the steering committee or any committee of the library. He actually represented only the County Free Library.
That's not what his email said.
The initial email was an error, and when I confronted him about that, he was very quick and apologized, and he did send a follow-up email that I shared with the council that said, no, I was in error, it was a mistake, I do not represent them.
Okay, thank you. My final question is addressed to the city attorney. Interested in the EIR process in terms of when and how the public can participate. As I understand, there'll be a scoping document. I'd like to know how it will be disseminated, how much time people will have to respond to it, and where to address its comments. Next, I understand there'll be a preliminary EIR, which will include findings and potential mitigation measures which the public can comment on. And same thing, how is it going to be disseminated, how much time to comment, will be 2 weeks, 30 days, and where to address the comments. Also my understanding is that the preliminary EIR will look at alternative sites and not just the two. That'll be followed by a final EIR, which will be, again, again, subject to public comment. Again, same question, dissemination, how much time, and where to address the comments. I understand then that the report will go to the council, where it will take its action, and then the only public recourse after that would be to file a lawsuit. Could we have a process published with some timelines and answers on how the public will be informed about each step, and how much time to respond, and where to send the response?
And Mr. Mayor, members of the council, part of the report for the next council meeting will include an outline of a timeline. The CEQA requires generous amounts of time for public input. The process will be something like there will be a scoping meeting in December sometime. I haven't got a clue how they will recommend that that be noticed, but there will be plenty of notice, and the city council can direct that additional notice be given if that is so appropriate. Once the scoping is completed, and that will be with public input and council input, anybody that wants to comment on things that ought to be looked at in the EIR, then the EIR consultant will take it away. They will engage various experts and come up with a draft EIR, is the proper term for the preliminary EIR. The draft EIR will be then circulated for at least 45 days. It is true that as a matter of law, CEQA requires some very strange things, including the EIR has to look at the impact of the project on greenhouse gases, whatever that may be. It also has to look at alternative sites. It doesn't say how many, but it does say it has to look at alternative sites, which in this case will probably be 2 or 3 additional sites at a minimum. It then everything has to be circulated, everything has to be looked at, and that's without staff telling the consultants what they should find. And then at that point in time, it comes back as a draft EIR. That draft EIR is looked at by everybody, and there's public input and comments. Those comments are taken, and the comments taken together with the draft EIR make up the final EIR. Once again, that will have to come to the city council that will have to decide whether or not that EIR adequately addresses the potential environmental impacts from the project. And by the way, the EIR will also, by law, have to include a no project alternative, meaning if the library is not built at all, what environmental impacts would come from that? It's usually pretty close to none. So that would be the process, kind of the way it will look, and there'll be something brought to you, and the city council will approve the process as part of its, I believe it's next meeting.
Right, thank you very much.
Okay, we now go to public comments. So I would invite any member of the public to come up.
Good evening. My name is Karen Bliss, and I'm the president of the board of the Friends of the Atherton Community Library. As many of you know, the Friends sends out 2 newsletters a year to inform Athertonians of activities at the library and to ask for their membership support. The funds we raise provide many library services, including approximately $6,000 for the Friends collection of bestsellers with a primary circulation only in Atherton, approximately $6,000 in children's programs, funding for bridge classes, refreshments for our book club, knitting group, adult classes, movie nights, staff appreciation funding, etc. Thus, the Friends have been very involved for many years in many library programs and understand very well the problems of our current facility in providing these services. The 82-year-old library facility was originally the police chief's house and was never intended as a public library. As such, we supported the need for an analysis of its structural integrity, which unfortunately determined that the building was seismically unsafe. If we delay going forward with building a new facility in the park, as approved by the City Council on October 19th, we risk the possibility of the existing library being rendered unusable or unsafe. I must emphasize that we did not come to the point of choosing an architect to draw plans for a new library without years of hard work. We have spent the last 3 years in a detailed analysis of the needs of our library patrons through surveys, focus groups, an analysis of comparable community library programs, and 3 public meetings. We then addressed picking a site that would best serve those needs over Conard Park. Concurrently, we have waited until we have had adequate funding to support the facility, both in the building stage and annual maintenance. We have taken the time to do a thoughtful analysis of our needs, the best location, and the appropriate funding in order to do the right thing by our citizens. If the town wants to put together a whole new master plan, then they will have to do the same kind of extensive analysis. Firstly, they will have to determine what their facility needs are. Will we continue to outsource our public works and building departments? It will take time to determine if that was the right decision. Will we decide to outsource our police department to the county sheriffs like Portola Valley and San Carlos have to reduce our pension liabilities? Will we close down our money-losing post office? How does the public feel about these issues? All of these assessments will take many months, if not years, to be done in a thoughtful, thorough way. Only then will the town know what their facility needs are, if any. If we continue to outsource most of our employees, we may not need much space. Not until this point will the town be able to determine the cost of such a facility and start fundraising, a process that has not been successful to date. We run the risk that we will not have the need or the money to build a new town center. In any event, it will take several years to get us to the point where the library steering committee is today, to begin choosing an architect to draw plans for our new facility. I do not think it is prudent to prolong our use of a seismically unfit building, not when we have spent several years determining the best path forward, all with the approval of our council. I think the citizens of Atherton deserve a new safe facility sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Public comments? Any other member of the public? Go ahead. Ellen?
Valerie Gardner, 18 McCormick Lane. I would like to posit that what we're trying to figure out right now is not whether or not we need a new library or a new town center or not, but really where we are in this process and what we should be focused on right now, and also what your job is as a council. The ALBSC, the current library committee, was formed as a result of Resolution 1030 that was approved by this council at the end of the last library committee's work, where they proposed to the council that you approve the site in the park to build a new library. And the council declined to approve that and instead approved and passed Resolution 1030, which basically requires, or actually establishes a new body to go out and poll community sentiment about the library. And the words of this resolution are, whereas the mission of the Atherton Library Building Steering Committee will be to oversee the planning and design process of a new library that meets the current and future needs of the community, ensuring that the new facility will be a source of pride for generations to come, and ideally be energy and space efficient and retain the building style elements that are important to Atherton residents. In addition, the community is engaged in the process and public input is drawn from multiple sources, including focus group meetings, interviews, surveys, and charrette design workshops that will offer the community the opportunity to participate in the concept design process. It's my feeling that at this point, or actually in the process of the council making the last decision, the objective should have been, did the ALBSC fulfill this process? And that's what I think some of the concerns are in the community, that the community input process has not been sufficient. I don't have time anymore, so I'm not going to be able to go through, but I will say that the 3 workshops, I attended one. We had an hour-and-a-half wonderful presentation on a beautiful vision, which I really think is inspiring, but we had 30 minutes to respond. And each of the 3 workshops that were held were similar. They weren't working up permanent appointment. The focus groups were also limited and really missed a whole bunch of groups. Only surveyed 6 moms and a nanny, a group of juniors and sophomores from Menlo Atherton, only one of whom had actually been in our library, and the 3rd group interviewed the needs of the Arts Committee and the Heritage Association and talked about their spaces. So I don't think that's an adequate committee input process. That's why.
Yeah, I would just make a comment at this stage that for this special meeting, public comment is limited to particular items on the special agenda, and agenda item tonight is to discuss citizens' request for a master plan. So if that's, we've got to be very careful. I'm sure the library gets involved somehow in that, but the agenda item tonight is to discuss the citizens' request for a master plan, and that's what the public comment is limited to. Thank you, Laura.
So can I just finish then? Because of that agenda item, the reason why I said what I said is because I believe the master plan process will allow us to solve and fix some of the community input issues. Thank you.
Are there any other public comments regarding the master plan?
I have one. This will be, I'm sorry. This is going to be very short. My name is Steve Dorman. I live at 80 Atherton Avenue. I've been a resident of Atherton for almost 20 years now. Use the library, use the park, use the post office, so within a master plan. I guess my feeling is that for the master plan, that it seemed like you'd already come up with a plan for part of the community with the library, and you've made that decision. And for me, trying to incorporate that back into a master plan at this point, after you've already voted on this, it just seems like, to me, having been in business, it's a little like analysis paralysis, that you can keep going back and forth on this. And I think you all should make a decision. I thought the report was vetted, everything was very professional, vetted, and I've looked at some of the things in the master plan. It looks very good, but to me, the master plan should not include the library. I think that's already been decided, I thought.
Thank you.
I don't like being ambushed at this point.
My name is Walter Sleep, and I live at 227 Telfa Drive in the Lindenwood area. I'm going to give you this letter. I'm just going to read it quickly. I am very displeased that after very careful work by the Town Council and the Library Steering Committee, an almost last-minute Hail Mary effort to insert a non-required master plan is even being considered. The effort seems to be spearheaded by a vocal minority with a hidden agenda to use funds already allocated by law to the library for a larger fundraising effort to benefit plans for the town center. The process this minority has used certainly lacks transparency, and the supposed survey was biased in its wording and of questionable statistical validity. The use of the Atherton email list may be inappropriate under its formation guidelines, but getting down to the real question at hand, whether the new Atherton Library is better located next to the rail and the public service facilities or in Holdreth Palmer Park. This question has been studied and evaluated, and a recommendation has been made and approved. It is important to remember that the library issue has a long history, including numerous attempts to leverage or reallocate the dedicated library funds. What can possibly be gained by unraveling this process now? I agree with the former speaker. We certainly run the risk of derailing what should be a positive project for the community, and we certainly run the risk of community fatigue over this issue. And we need and look forward to your involvement in the exciting prospect of helping determine what this library will actually be. If the council were to opt for a town facilities master plan that included the library, is there any assurance that there will not be attempts to undo the process yet again? Rather, now is the time to work within the resolution passed by the city council and complete the environmental assessment and evaluate how a new library located in the park can blend into the master plan for Holbrook Palmer Park.
Thanks. Are there any other public comments?
Who is the secretary?
If not, then I'm going to. Charles?
Charles Marsala, 33 Emily. I started out 12 years ago, maybe 13, on the art committee, looking at putting an art center in the park, and stayed with the facilities committee, so I've been with this process for many years. There have been some stuff on the blog posted, and some questions being raised. I originally was one that thought about, there should be a community center, and there was funds there. I've since backed off of that, and since the idea that we thought of stealing the money, I've actually disassociated myself as much as possible until recently about this. I thought looking back, when we formed the Blue Ribbon Task Force, I noticed some things posted, which is about the town center. And I see that council members, when I look at our minutes from the council meetings of that year, 2008, we're saying we need to get town input on the full center. And my thoughts are here, is written here. It was believed that there needed to be a determination how the majority of the town felt about the design and funding of whether they wanted a new town center at all. And the concept that I've had is we got away from that. It seems that even now we don't have it on the agenda whether the library and the park issue, which should have been, in my opinion, it may have a lot of merit, it's got a lot of benefits, a lot of people talk to like it, and then sometimes there's some people that say, do we really want that big of a library? So if you had a vote on a town center, which library not, because it's not on the agenda, you have the support of the residents. And my thought is this should be done just like we said on the town center, is it a vote? And it should be an agenda item. The idea of saying things aren't on the agenda, but yet if someone is opposed and wants to make a comment about the funds, right now they can. But then when someone says, I want to talk about it, they can't because it's not on the agenda. It seems that we are playing parliamentary procedure here with the town. And we should be inclusive. We should allow the town residents to weigh in on the whole concept of what's going on so that we have the support of what happens. One of the things in the survey that I noted was 20% of people had no opinion. So if you're taking a survey that's yes or no, how can you have no opinion? Why can you vote on the survey? People need to be more responsive on these decisions, and I think the council should put an agenda item and should do a survey. Thank you.
Are there any other public comments?
Good evening, council members. My name is Dee Dee Fisher, 38 Tuscaloosa Avenue. I think I'm being referred to by Mrs. McKeithen in some of the recent meetings that have been taped as the naysayer. So my new position is naysayer. First of all, I'd like to answer an accusation that's been circling on the blogs and other things. There is nobody coveting money from the library. I was involved from the beginning, establishing this fund. I know what it's for, and I know what its purposes are. So the accusation that some of us or from the Town Center Task Force want this money is extremely wrong. I have one other kind of bone to pick that's technical, and that is the reference to the library funds. Well, this pool of money that's been accumulated has been accumulated from every Atherton resident's tax dollars. So every Atherton resident can and should give their opinion on how their tax dollars are spent. And I think right now one of the problems is, as people wake up in this town, they're saying, what's going on? So, therefore, this request for a master plan. Why now? Well, for the last year, there have been requests and discussions about master plans for both staff and for the Town Center Task Force. So this is not an idea that has just popped in our heads in the last month. There have been discussions about well, a vision for the town and what should we all be doing and getting behind? The idea that there's no money for the town center, I'm tired of hearing the complaints. There isn't today, but as soon as we have an organized plan, excuse me, I'm gonna go over my time, there will be money to build the town center. And it would be really nice if everybody here could get behind that idea. And I've heard comments about no money. It'd be great. We'll start taking pledges and checks tonight. So the public process that has been proposed or has been completed by the library has still left people with questions. There were charrettes. There were other focus groups. There is no public record of any comments or remedies or discussion of the comments that were brought to these charrettes. So I think that's another reason why people are asking questions. There was also no time for public comment at some of these charrettes. People feel rebuffed. Park and Rec gave you a plan or asked for a survey. It wasn't even discussed. In the past, when we've done things at the park, major changes, there have been surveys sent to the town. Things were turned down by the residents. 2 pools, an art center, and Little League was approved. So people are wondering why this time they're not being asked. So we now have 300 residents that have asked for a master plan. What's the master plan going to do? Well, this gentleman's right. The master plan should bring every single user that uses this. It uses the town hall, it uses the police department, it uses the building department, it uses the soccer field, it uses the play school, the neighborhoods. It should all be included in input in the master plan. They haven't been. So I keep asking the question to myself, what are we afraid of? Why are we afraid to do a master plan process? It will slow things down. Well, if we did it in an organized way, it wouldn't slow things down that much, and it might even help with the environmental process. It also might bring everybody together. There's an opportunity to get everybody working on the same page. But I think for some reason we're afraid to be doing that. There also seems to be a predisposition on many of the council members' minds. Both Mr. Widmer on his website has already declared where he's coming from, and Mrs. McKeithen last week on tape at the library task force meeting has said that this probably will be done a 3-2 vote. All of these things are concerning to the residents. Lots of their tax dollars and use of the facility. I've not heard anybody say they don't want a library. We all want a library. It's just, where is it going to be? I have brought tonight a list of very well-reputed landscape firms that would help with a master plan. I'm going to give that to the city manager. Hopefully there'll be some use for it. And I guess I'd like to end by saying, at the last meeting, Councilmember Keith had challenged the council to kind of get tough and make a decision. Well, at this point, I'm challenging all of you to do the right thing. And the right thing to me is the master plan and to engage this community in what will be a long-term vision for this town and the buildings and the places that will be used here. Thank you.
Ms. Fisher, once again, I think you have misinformed the public. I would be willing to take a lie detector test, saying, you can ask the question, I have never once in my life referred to you as a naysayer. Moreover, I have never said, and you can look at the tape, that it would be determined on the 3-2 vote. Someone said it would be nice if the council were to agree. I said it was probably unlikely in this community. It's just the nature of the way we are in Atherton, and it's unlikely that we probably would agree. That's unfortunate, but it's the way things are. I did not refer to a vote.
Are there any other public comments?
I'm Janet Larson, I live on Patricia Drive. I would like to thank the Library Committee for 3 years of hard work. I think there's nobody that disagrees with this. But I think what many, many residents of this town are considering is that they haven't been asked. They haven't been asked what they feel their needs are. It has not come up to a vote. I think we need to do an analysis of the needs of the whole community, not just a small group. Town rules should not be conducted under what the committee wants, and over their terms, but what the majority of the citizens of this community want. And I think it's horrible to divide a community this way, in that there is all this bickering going back and forth over this library. It is not that anybody does not want a library. It is the process that is happening. And we have not been included in the process, and I think that makes everybody angry. You have to remember that you are the city council voted upon by the members of this community. And if you can't take what the community says, then don't look forward to being elected again. Thank you.
I would just remind everybody again, public comments, that the agenda item tonight is to discuss the citizen request for a master plan. This is not a discussion on the library. The decision on the library was already made at the last council meeting. So this is tonight, we're discussing a request for a master plan.
My name is Denise Kupperman. I live at 74 Atherton Avenue, and I'm the chair of the Atherton Library Building Steering Committee. I feel that to call for a master plan at this point to include the library is questionable. The fact of the matter is that facilities for this town, including a library, have been under study for many years. And it actually started in 1999 when the town hired an architect to evaluate facilities, and the determination was made at that time that there was not much public support for building new facilities. And the project was brought up again in 2006, and there was a Blue Ribbon Task Force that worked for a couple of years in trying to engage the community in a number of meetings and community meetings to get their input on what they thought the facilities would be. And that report was made in November 2009 and accepted by this council. The Town Center Task Force was formed in March 2010, and a great deal of work has been done in terms of defining what public service facilities are needed. The library and Friends of the Library participated in the Blue Ribbon Task Force, and after the needs assessment was done, there was a formation of a library committee. The library is a separate building, and the notion is that it would not be included physically within the same building as public service facilities. The Atherton Library Building Steering Committee has evaluated 2 sites that were mandated by this council, and in a process that was mandated by this council and approved. I can go through every single meeting and all the resolutions, but I won't take your time this evening. This council unanimously approved the spending over $200,000 in, I think, a relatively extensive process. We have tried to engage the community, and this town has tried to engage the community for many years in a discussion about facilities that we need. And we came to this council with a final recommendation after much work. We are not trying to ignore what people feel or think. We did have good attendance at our meetings, and I would encourage you to move forward with the process. I think that a determination, at some point we're going to need to decide whether or not the library is near the police department and building department and the rail or in the park. And I feel that we've made that decision and that we've gone through a lot of work, and I think a fairly thorough analysis. I thank you for your time. I actually have one other thing to read. I have 14 seconds.
How do you
Okay, what is a town center? This was provided to me by a resident, and a number of residents have said they're getting tired of having to come to all these community meetings. In my thinking, a town center is where the town residents may go to congregate and enjoy themselves. I envision parks, libraries, museums, galleries, performance, and lecture halls. I cannot conceive of a family discussing where to go on a beautiful weekend and concluding that they want to spend the day at the building department, or the planning department, or the police department. Those are worthwhile and necessary town administrative functions, but they are not, in my mind, a center for a town, a center for the town. When you dream of a well-conceived library located in Hobart Palmer Park, you can easily envision that this new town facility would be very well be the core of the town center. If properly designed in the park, it could house our Heritage Museum, have a large enough meeting room to conduct meaningful lectures, and provide a reasonable collection. But we've gone through part of the master plan process, and I think we've asked one of the underlying questions that we would need to answer at some point. And we have no assurance if we were to start a master plan process that the process would somehow, again, be changed. Thank you.
Other public comments? Janine?
I'd like to read a letter from two residents that were unable to be here this evening. Betty Ullman, 135 Selby. The request to implement a comprehensive master plan for all town facilities, including the library, is nothing more than a tactic to delay moving forward with a new library in the park. The library's location has been studied, evaluated, and a recommendation made to the council to approve the park's location at their October meeting. If this request is accepted, years of work by dedicated volunteers, staff, and board members would be wasted, including funds expended. Why start over when the work has already been done? Although there is little money available for a new town center, this is not true for the library. This project will be completely funded with money from the library donor city account. It is now time to move forward with this positive and wonderful opportunity. I respectfully ask that the council reject the request to implement a comprehensive master plan for the town facilities and the library.